Hello, everybody. My name is Lauren Clark, and I am one of the co-hosts of the brand new podcast out on Apple Podcasts, as well as Spotify, known as Dizzy Directors. Whoop whoop. Tonight we are recording a brand new episode that is actually hopefully going to be released in the next couple of hours. But I wanted to record a fun little episode today talking about POTS. Well, not specifically just POTS because that's what this podcast is entirely about, but talking about POTS and your menstrual cycle. Yes, I know, weird, gross, sorry, but come on. If you are a woman and if you have POTS, you probably know what I'm talking about. It is a unfortunate reaction of what happens with a lot of people who have POTS, like myself, and also are a woman, like myself, and who also have to deal with menstrual cycles and periods, and it's a part of the process. So you're probably wondering, well, Lauren, why are you talking about this? You're not a doctor. What would you know about this? No, I'm not a doctor, but I have some advice to give on it of what works for me and based off of some research articles that I have started working through myself. So, there are a lot of things that you can do to help with POTS, specifically when you're on your menstrual cycle. And as frequently as this happens, make sure that you always have salt on yourself at all times. Your iron can get really, 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 really low if you are not careful. And one of the great articles from the Santa Maria Medicine Clinic talks about POTS and how it affects a woman's menstrual cycle, of how you will feel very, very drained because there's salt within your body, that is actively creating through the ducts of your body, and without having that, you will pass out a lot easier. So a lot of what they recommend is getting saline IV treatment, avoiding ibuprofen, even though ibuprofen works great for cramps if you want to make them go away. But if you have POTS, you should probably try to avoid ibuprofen, as it says in the article, and treat the iron deficiency if you have one. Because for some POTS patients you do, and some you don't. And the other biggest one is just to drink a lot of water. Just drink a lot of water. Water is your best friend when it comes to POTS, and especially when you are dealing with something like having a menstrual cycle, because that's a thing and it happens. The next biggest thing also is take care of yourself. If you know that it's going to be a bad one because you have a menstrual cycle, you have POTS, take care of yourself. That is one of the biggest things that I can obviously recommend and offer, and hope that people take that advice, because I know people like to be on the go, but if you have POTS, you gotta take care of yourself, because POTS is so unpredictable and you never really know what's gonna happen because it's POTS. And I'm in a different space than I was last time, because I'm currently having a POTS flare, and it's, part of the process. The next biggest thing that I'm going to be talking about is lightheadedness, and specifically from a clinical article from make sure I'm getting this right. Yeah, from the Heart and Lung Circulation Network. Yes. So Heart and Lung Circulation Network. And it is specifically talking about the variability between your POTS and your menstrual cycle and kind of how it all connects together. And they conducted a review of make sure I'm getting this right, a cohort of 81 young women aged 16 to 53 with POTS. And they did a tilt table test through the Mayo Clinic. Another great resource, which we will be touching on in a few episodes later. And out of the study that they did, 34 described worsening POTS symptoms during their menstruation period, specifically lightheadedness, syncope, and of course, fatigue were more pronounced, which is what happens when you have POTS. Fatigue is a thing, and it kind of just happens. And out of the 34 women, as they were saying, describing worsening of symptoms for premenstruational or through menstruation, 21 were documented to be using some form of a, contraception to basically make sure that, their periods and things like that were getting lessened. 15 of those 21 women were predominant aged between 20 and 39, reported noticeable improvement in symptoms when menstruation was skipped or suppressed using a contraceptive, using something to essentially, like I said, suppress it. The best part, or I guess the good part of when stuff isn't hurting, is the luteation phase, which is right before a woman starts a period, and it essentially feels better because you can still do a lot of things, and you don't feel like you're going to be getting tired a lot, which sucks because you never want to feel like you're getting tired. You want to be able to feel like I can still keep doing things and still feel my best. So the next one that I'm going to be covering, and I know I'm talking about kind of a lot of different articles, is another wonderful article from Normal Light. I highly recommend reading some of their articles. I've been going through and reading a lot of their really cool and fun articles. And I know I keep talking about what articles am I pulling from? It's because they're so cool and they're so good, and I love the fact that I was able to research them and I'm able to share it with you all and talk about it. And like I said, I'm going to be putting in at the end of this video all of the links in the research of where I got these articles from. So next we're talking about POTS and kind of abnormal cycles. And because POTS is a chronic illness, it unfortunately does create, sometimes your menstrual cycles will become irregular and it sucks. And unfortunately you kind of can't control it, and it comes to town when it wants to. So, you know how your body works. If you got POTS, you know how your body works. You know how the premenstrual cycles affect you differently, but for the common indicators, for some people that may not know and think, oh, this is just, normal and things like that. This is just some of the symptoms. So, you can have your mood swings, you can be depressed, you can be anxious, you can be, inability to concentrate, whatever that looks like for you. But if you know your POTS symptoms of that's fatigue, weakness, tiredness, the fainting. For some people, like myself, I have gibberish moments where I will just start speaking gibberish, which is, as you can tell on the podcast, I have such a hard time. And sometimes I will just start speaking gibberish and I can't help it. But it's a part of the process, and it's POTS. You can have flares with POTS. Just let's put the plate down. You can have flares with POTS, and that's okay because it's a thing and it happens and it's normal. It is normal and it's okay. And like I talked about in the previous study, they also talk about that in this article, that women with POTS are more likely to experience lightheadedness through the stages of their menstrual cycle compared to controls without POTS, which means they did a study on both. They did it with people with POTS and without. And they say the flares can happen around your period due to the normal hormonal fluctuations that occur in a woman's body. So one of the things that they talk about in the article also is that, tracking your cycle helps. Highly recommend the app Flow. It's FLO, and it's available on all services. Highly recommend it. And just keep track of it, because tell the difference between your POTS symptoms and tell the difference between your normal symptoms. So that way, when you do go to the doctor or things like that, just try to keep track of it. Most of all, how do you prevent a POTS flare? Get rest. Sleep. Sleep is your best friend. Go to sleep. Hydrate. Drink water. Make sure you're getting your sodium in. Whatever your doctor tells you to do, get your sodium in so that way you can stay hydrated. Same thing as I talked about a little bit earlier, the iron supplements and salty snacks. I know everybody around you might be a little bit jealous that you're putting salt in your water, but come on, do the salt in the water. It's so helpful, and you'll feel better afterwards, I promise. And for people that may think that POTS and your period, all of it together, it's not in your head. I promise you it's not in your head. As somebody that can speak from experience of having to get up for class every day, and when she is on her cycle, and how hard it is, and how I don't want to get out of bed, even if I have taken my salt meds in the morning and I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to get out of bed. And somehow I muster up the courage to get out of bed, even if I don't want to and I am in a lot of pain. I somehow still figure out how to do so, and I do it with great ease. All right, so the next one we're going to talk about is another wonderful article by the International Journal of Gynecology and Obstetricians, and this was actually published back in 2012. A lot of people think that POTS is more recent due to the fact of popularity of social media and TikTok, but POTS has been around for a while. And because it's been around for so long, I guess people are just starting to make more light of it, which is awesome. So the main topic that they talk about is, a lot of stuff that I've already covered. The lightheadedness during menstruation and, just having to figure all that stuff out and doing the different tests. But Vanderbilt did a very, very wonderful article and test that they put together for over the course of years. So from April 2005 to January 2009, they designed a custom questionnaire that was administered to patients with POTS. Not over 65 of them had POTS, and the healthy individuals, there were 95 of them, and they analyzed the results via the Fisher Exact test and the Mann-Whitney U, so like letter U, test. And the results that they got back were patients with POTS reported increased lightheadedness through all phases of menstrual cycle phases compared with healthy controls. Both groups experienced the greatest lightheadedness during menses and a decrease in lightheadedness during the follicle phase. Patients with POTS reported a higher indication of gynecological diseases as compared with healthy controls. The severity of lightheadedness was found during the menstrual cycle, which may not be related to the increased estrogen levels. Patients with POTS also reported a increase in estrogen-related gynecological disease. Like myself, have the same issue. It happens, and these are all great articles, like I said, to do research from, and they are just amazing conversation pieces. So another thing that they talk about also in this article is the chronic orthostatic intolerance that disproportionately affects women of childbearing age. So specifically, more than 500, again, this was back in 2012, so this number has probably changed since then, but back in 2012, more than 500,000 women are affected by POTS in the U.S. with a symptom onset beginning between age 15 and age 50, and 1 in 5 women in predominance. So, I was 19 years old when I was diagnosed with my POTS. However, they most likely think that I have had POTS since I was a child. We are still waiting to get that confirmed, but it wouldn't surprise me if that ended up happening, because my POTS came around the time period of age what they now think 15, 16, and that's what they possibly think is where mine may have started, which was right at the beginning of COVID. So who really knows? But the characteristic symptoms of POTS, we kind of didn't really go over some of those in the first episode, so we're going to talk about them. Palpitations, feeling lightheadedness, the blurry vision upon standing, which Apple Watches are also your best friend. If you can get one, or any kind of watch, or a pulse ox, which is just like a pulse oximeter that goes on your finger, that you can like record your heart rate, keep that on you, because it is a wonderful, wonderful resource. And you will get blurry upon standing, and sometimes, if you're not lucky, you will fall forward. But if you catch yourself and you know that your POTS is happening, or if you feel your heart racing, catch yourself on a chair. Catch yourself on a chair. So, and most of the time, it's a physiological feature of POTS, which, when you stand up, your heart rate goes up really high, kind of feel the room sitting, you don't feel good, you feel, lightheadedness, and, you just, it creates a lot of issues for some people. But all of this to say that POTS, specifically when you have your period, should not limit you in the slightest. It shouldn't. You should be able to feel like that you can be yourself, and you feel like that you can do whatever you want to do, that makes you feel like you can be your absolute best self, whatever that looks like to you. So, all the studies that I mentioned in today's video, so the International Journal of Gynecology and Obstetricians will be linked at the end of this video. Normal light. I actually said that wrong the last time. I said normal light. The other one The other article that I had mentioned was called Norma Light, and that's another great resource to also look at. The abstract that I mentioned of the menstrual cycle variability symptoms of postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome was also mentioned, and I will be linking that at the end of this video as well. And then also a article from the Santa Maria Medicine Clinic based out of Florida talking about POTS and a period. So on the next couple episodes, we are going to be talking to two Sarah Lawrence students, as I go to Sarah Lawrence College, and we are also going to be talking to a chiropractic neurologist coming up. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please make sure to go follow Dizzy_directors on Instagram and Dizzy Directors on YouTube. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Bye, guys!